We'll go ahead and get started with our webinar. So this is our, like I said, second to last webinar that we are doing for CTE Teach this year. Next week will be the final webinar of our statewide advisory, where we kind of dig into the program. But for this one, we are going over mentoring during COVID, teaching CTE in hybrid environments. And as always, I am Christopher McClung, the program coordinator for Southern California. I'm glad you guys are all here. And then Melissa Dix will be on later. She's our project administrator. She's going to pop in and kind of go over how we're going to do invoicing and tying up the year and getting everybody paid for being a part of this program. And then we'll go ahead and let everybody introduce themselves, starting with Mr. Grant.
Well, Grant Ermis here, program coordinator for Northern California.
Very cool. And Kathy?
I am Kathleen Quiggle, or Kathy, you can call me Kathy. I'm the program support specialist for Ed Services, and I help support CTE Teach.
And David.
David Allman, teacher on assignment, community recruiter for the Colton Redlands CRY-ROP, and also assisting in CTE Teach this year.
Fantastic. So glad you guys are here. So when you came in, we were discussing bands. If we could only go to one concert, what concert would that be? Apparently Kathleen Quiggle, I'll say it again, would rather go to a Rolling Stones concert instead of a Beatles concert. That's craziness to me. So if you could do me a favor, type in a chat really quick. If you could go to one concert, what would you choose? Doesn't matter the era, doesn't matter the decade, alive or not. What would your ideal concert be to go to? George Strait. I love George Strait. Adam the Ants, Queen. We talked about that. If you had to choose between going to see Queen or U2, what would you see?
Queen.
Metallica.
All right, Metallica.
Stuff. Very cool. So so just out of curiosity, that's kind of a good question. Maybe I'll use that next year to kind of shape some of our playlists that we have. So what we're going to do first, though, is we're going to do a new tool with you. We actually did this one last year, but we're going to do it this year, and it's called Pear Deck. And show of hands really quick, how many of you have heard of Pear Deck before? Very cool. Well, good. So I'm going to go ahead and start this Pear Deck. So this is going to provide us the ability to do some interactive elements throughout this webinar that we do. And it's loading up here in just a sec. So if you could, on a second screen, and this works just as well on a phone, another laptop or a tablet or something you have on an additional screen, if you could go to joinpd.com and you're going to type in the code PCMTXU. And while you're doing that, just some reminders. So we will have this available. This will be open. That way, that allows you guys to interact with us as we do this, go through this webinar. But also, if you do have any questions or anything you want to ask, Kathy and David are both in the chat room, and then they can gather any questions you might have, and then we will be able to respond to those as we go throughout them. So we have 14 students connected. We'll go ahead and continue on to the presentation. Those of you who are still joining, the code is going to stay in this top right corner. So you'll want to have two screens open. This works just as well on a phone. And then that's about it. So Grant, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. So our first Pear Deck activity, if y'all have done this before, it's kind of a neat one, but we want to know from you what's filling your bucket and what's draining your bucket, because we know that both are happening. So in order to interact here, if you're not familiar, well, most of you are familiar, but just a quick refresh is if you think you're really crafty with the mouse, you can keep it on the pencil tool and just draw your answer in over the line. If you don't think that would work, you can also click on the text icon on your Pear Deck screen and just click where you want to type the text in, and then we will be able to review some of your responses.
Teaching online, definite challenge for sure.
Look forward to seeing people regularly again.
Yeah, and we'll be able to cover some of that.
Funny little note, Chris and myself and Kathy and David, I have not been able to meet any one of these individuals once.
Nope. Grant, you could either be 6 feet tall or 4 feet tall. I have no idea. We will find out someday.
Probably closer to the latter.
I love this.
Oh, does anybody do Calm or Breathe apps, something like that?
Yep. Very cool. All right. Well, thank you for sharing. So
Thank you. So today, quick little preview, we're going to spend a majority of our time on 2 things. And that's going to be number 1, looking at hybrid CTE models, what it can be like to teach CTE in a hybrid setting. Y'all are doing some fashion of it. So we'll give you some of our best practices and a little foray, some resources. And then we're going to talk about mentoring a little more holistically as we start to round out the year. How is mentoring helping folks? And in some ways, how could it be hindering them? And as we think about CTE Teach next year, maybe we start thinking about what our mentoring structure might look like as we get into the next academic year. And then we'll obviously give you some resources to help out with that. And then as Chris had mentioned previously, Melissa will come in and we'll talk about some logistics for how the year gets rounded out and kind of look at some numbers and then send you on your way from that point.
that's right. And then the last thing I wanted to add is, and I forgot to say this at the beginning, is we will have a bit.ly at the very end where you can access all the slides that we have for you today at the end. At this point, we just kind of wanted you to go along the ride with us as we go through the Pear deck. And then we were done. We will give you that link and then you can get all this information, all the links and everything at your disposal. All right, so when we think about hybrid CTE and we think about career technical education and just how awesome we all know that it is, that we're providing hands-on training, the teacher is providing this hands-on knowledge from their experiences to the student, and then you mentor teachers are providing, hands-on support to these brand new teachers. And it's just this world that, we've always relied on and we've really loved what we do. And we've really, just been a banner of just how amazing career technical education can be. But however, when we get into this world or this year, a lot of us feel more so like this. And so this is an actual picture of my daughter at home. So one day she was doing distance learning. Actually, it wasn't one day, it was like just a couple of weeks ago. She was doing distance learning. Her teacher had asked her to find a worksheet. She looked through all of her papers to find the one worksheet that her teacher gave her. She couldn't find it. She pulled everything out and she eventually just said, forget it. I'm just going to lie face down on the floor. I'm done. And it just made me feel so bad for her, but obviously not bad enough to where I couldn't stop and take a picture of it, but just made me feel for her, just like, gosh, this is how our students feel, which obviously this is a lot of even how our teachers feel right now, just getting through this world of distance learning. And then now we're talking about getting through a world of hybrid career technical education, where we're trying to do both online and in person at the same time. So hopefully in this, we can give you guys some tools to kind of help ease some of what has been going on and what we have to look forward to. So that being said, we're going to look at, I want to ask you guys a question, and we're going back to our Pear deck, is if you could tell me, what is your district currently doing? Are you currently in distance learning still? And we have a district who is staying virtual through the remainder of the year. Are you doing hybrid learning? We have some students who are in person in the afternoon and they're doing virtual in the morning. And then we have some that students are home, or some teachers who are teaching at home and in person at the same time. Or do we have, how many of you are all in person? And so I'm going to put this on and just kind of get a gauge as to where everybody is at right now. A lot of people doing hybrid learning. And this is honestly, and this is very similar to what we saw in the morning, is a lot of people have returned to doing some sort of hybrid instruction already. So we have, okay, so we have a few that are still doing some distance learning, and one person is fully in person. And it looks like the majority of us are doing some sort of hybrid model right now. Awesome. So what we're going to share with you is just, again, going to this idea of what hybrid instruction is, a lot of times what we end up doing is we end up just throwing things at the wall, seeing which one sticks, and then just trying to hope with the one that seems to stick the longest. But first, I want to kind of encourage you guys to ask yourself some questions when it comes to the instruction, when it comes to the students who are in these classrooms. And the first question is to ask yourself, who are your students that are actually in these classrooms? Are these beginning students in the classroom? Are they ninth graders, or are they brand new people in an adult program that are being taught in this environment? Or are they advanced students as well? Like they've been in the classroom in person for, they're seniors in high school. They started, 10th grade or 11th grade, and now they're figuring out how to do this online and in person at the same time. So again, thinking, who is the students that you're teaching? What is their purpose of the instruction? Are they trying to gain some sort of competency in doing the classes, or are they trying to gain skills, if not both, while they're in these classes? And then also, when will teaching take place? Is it taking place synchronously, asynchronously? I was joking, saying that it's funny to me, the word asynchronous did not exist in common vocabulary a year ago. So much so that my own daughter, who was face down on the floor, knows the word asynchronous now. And I asked her, like, hey, how was school? And she says, oh, Dad, it was good. We had asynchronous instruction, something she would have never said a year ago. So it's interesting how things have changed. And where will teaching take place? And again, kind of thinking about, are you doing things online, in person, or a little bit of both? And then lastly, why are your students there? Are they there because they're just getting course credit? Are they there because they're trying to get a specific certification that your teachers offer? Is it to get an internship, some sort of articulation with a college, or do they just need to fill a need in their schedule? So again, these are questions to really ask as to why are our students there? And once we figure out why our students are there, then we can start thinking about what is the best model that's going to work for teaching them what they need to know. So now we're going to look at two models that we have encountered called, I call it the broadcast model and the on location model. And both of these models is really just giving you the nuts and bolts of how these hybrid models are working in the classroom. And so the first one is the broadcast model. And it should be there. It is. And so this is something that we have done here at CRY-ROP in doing some sort of hybrid instruction. And the way this works is you have a centralized room where somebody is presenting information. And that is done through a Zoom, kind of like I'm doing now. And then it goes out to multiple rooms where you have people who are joined together in some sort of collaborative space, or they're joining in virtually. And so this model works really well if you're wanting to do both some broad instruction, but also build in some smaller collaboration. And we use this model actually for our teacher induction program in the summer. And the way it worked is like if we were giving content on lesson planning and classroom management, we had people who were able to do that from this centralized location. And then in smaller groups, the people who are in the rooms, they can work collaboratively on developing lessons together and planning for instruction. And so this model, like I said, works really well if you're trying to do both small group collaboration, but also giving out broader information. Some of the nuts and bolts of this is what you would need is a camera, a microphone. It really helps if whoever's presenting, they have a large projector monitor so they can see all the rooms that are going on at the same time. People can ask questions. And then it also helps to have some sort of assistant in each room that can help with managing chat and managing, people's questions and raising hands or whatnot. And I wanted to show you guys an example of what this looks like. And so this is a quick 1-minute video of what this model actually looks like when it's done carried out. And I'll pause it here really quick, just kind of give you a snapshot of the whole thing. So as you can see in the bottom right corner, as I said, our presenters are there giving the content. This one was about student engagement. And then we have all of our participants in 4 separate rooms on the campus. And so this allows them to get the information as abroad to everybody, but also builds in time where they can do some classroom, some smaller collaborations while in the room, but still keeping social distancing and all that stuff. So it's a great model for wanting to accomplish both of those. So the next one we want to share with you, not that one, stop that. And then this video, when you have access to it, this is more of just getting into the details of how this specific model works. And the next one we want to share with you is this one called the on-location model. And so what this is this is a little harder to do, but works really well, especially if you have shop classes and you have teachers who are doing a lot of hands-on, like an auto shop or construction or whatnot. And the way this works is you have the teacher who is delivering the content. You have somebody who is assisting them by recording them with a video, might have a microphone and all that kind of stuff. And then you have a second Zoom meeting that is occurring, or Google Meet meeting that is occurring virtually. And then your students are in person, but also virtual at the same time. And again, so this model works really well if you have a teacher who is wanting to show, how to take apart a carburetor. They can get filmed in doing this with the students, but also there's somebody doing that second Zoom meeting and then asking questions and providing information for that. Some of the things you'll need is just some of the standards, like I said, camera, tripod, all that kind of stuff. And I'll show you a video of what that looks like as well here. So you can see there are students online. Somebody is helping with the students who are online. And as we pan, we see that the teacher, this is the second Zoom meeting that is occurring in the room where the teacher is being filmed doing the hands-on instruction. And students who are in person are there collaborating with that teacher. All right, I'll go ahead and pause that. So again, this works really well if you're in a shop class, if your teacher needs to use both of their hands to do work, and you have students who are in person and online virtually at the same time. It requires a lot more assistance, a lot more help with people filming, running the Zoom meetings, but it definitely works well for having both of those in-person and virtual instructions occurring simultaneously. So here's some links that you guys can click on. This is, again, just the nuts and bolts of if you wanted to buy equipment to do these things, this is literally what you could buy. So this conference camera is what we used when we had the people presenting from the one room. That's the conference camera, and then a microphone so people can hear everything that they're saying. They don't have to have a microphone close to them. So I have a microphone that's in front of me and I can stand a few feet from it and everybody can still hear me fairly clearly. And then if you're having people who follow the teacher around in the second model, you can use some sort of iPad Touch or iPod Touch or something for a camera. This is a microphone that attaches to that, and then a tripod that person was using to film that teacher. So again, these are some links that you can click on, and then when we give you this, you can keep this and look at those later. So again, just some of the nuts and bolts. But what we would like to ask you now is if you maybe share with us, what are some other models that you guys have encountered this year, or maybe that your school is presently doing for hybrid CTE, or at least talking about it?
So what I've seen, or what I've done, is kind of like the second one that you've shown, where it's been filmed. I'm completely working from home, so it's not hybrid. But what I'll do is I will record a skills portion of, like a lab portion, record it, and then I would edit it. I'd watch it together as a class, and then my students will have to do a flip grid where they're filming a video of them doing the skill right? And then
Okay.
uploading it to Flipgrid. So that's worked pretty well as far as being able to assess their ability to do the skills portion in the class. So unfortunately, I have to use my family, right, as my cameraman. So I was, that's the
Yeah.
only hard part about doing that in the hybrid setting is you would need to have someone who can be your camera person
Sure.
to complete that. But that's what I've been doing, and it's worked pretty well.
That's good. Glad to hear that. Yeah, we heard in the first session, somebody had said they put a GoPro on their teacher's head. So, I mean, you only see the teacher's hands like they're playing a video game, but you definitely, it works to have that camera attached to the teacher, and then, that works as well. So let's go through some of these responses. Self-recording demonstrations, hands-on skills. Okay. Zoom and in-person instruction simultaneously. That's, again, we have a district that does that as well. They have students in person and online at the same time. All students are virtual in the morning, optional hybrid in the afternoon. We have a district that's doing that to where, they're virtual in the morning, and then after the morning sessions are done, they have an option to come to class. And we've not even gotten into grades. There's a whole gamut of grading that's going on as well. We have some districts who are only grading virtual instruction. In-person instruction is not graded at all. And then we have some districts that have completely frozen grades this year to where the students' grades cannot go down, but they can only go up as they continue to turn in assignments and get their credits and all that. So students are zooming from their advisories. Okay. How will cameras that track us around the room? Now we have swivel cameras is another type of camera to where you, and I should have put it on the list, but they're basically a camera that you put on a tripod and then it follows you where you move. Now it won't like actually follow you around the room like a creepy robot, but it will kind of sit still. And then as you move left and right, it'll kind of pivot to follow where you're moving. So those are neat as well. Very cool. Well, that's good. So now I'm gonna turn it over to Grant, and we're kind of go. So again, those were some of the nuts and bolts of the actual doing hybrid. Hopefully gives you some tools that you can at least look at, think through, how you can improve the instruction as we continue in this. And then now Grant's gonna go into the actual like mentoring part of it, what our teachers are experiencing changing to these hybrid models. So.
Thanks, Chris. And I'll tag on just one little comment to the whole piece of going hybrid. Think about how we can leverage students in this process, right? Teaching them about technology and how they can help and assist the teacher if we don't have instructional aids available in our classes, something like that. How can they be leveraged and utilized? I've seen that happen before. And some kids are going to rise to the occasion and take on the challenge. So if we pivot though, and we start looking at the whole mentoring piece, that's the main focus of the CTE Teach program. And so with mentoring, what we want to talk about really quick is that model and how we're utilizing our mentors in our programs throughout this year, but also with a mindset on how we're leveraging them for next year, for maybe future grant application cycles. So I'm going to talk about a couple of different models. In the first one, if Chris clicks the next slide, before I get there, we have a couple of statements that should guide some of this. So just like good teaching is good teaching, good coaching is good coaching, and that leads into the greatest gift you can give someone is your presence. The reason we brought these two pieces together is because we all have best practices. We all have experts in something that are being cultivated in our LEAs, and we can use them in that mentoring experience. Often some novice mentors will come into any program and think that they have to be the one to do it all. They have to be the mentor, when in fact, you're the individual that facilitates that growth, and that can happen through others. So recognize those good practices in others and make sure that you're as present as possible and spending dedicated, meaningful time with your mentors if you're an administrator and your mentees if you're a mentor. So those things are kind of two big guiding statements for us.
Sure.
So now looking at the models, I've done a lot of research lately on change models. There's a lot out there that spans back to the 1940s, and people are really feeling it these days. This phases of change model has 7 different steps. Something that we really need to consider is that everyone's going to start in a denial phase, right? As a mentor, we've got to be able to recognize those things. And even as an administrator, bringing on new programs and adapting programming, we've got to recognize that stage. And then after they've had a chance to cope a little bit and get their bearings again, they realize what's what, and they can separate emotion for the most part from cognition and how they're thinking. But then they get into this resistance and anger phase because they don't know what to do with it, which takes some structure, right? And that's kind of where CTE Teach comes in to help mitigate any issues that might arise here, because we can't really continue down the rest of this continuum without mitigating that piece. So as mentors and administrators, we help the folks that we're working with understand, cope, and deal with those emotions in the context of the new change. Hopefully we can get them to kind of let it get past things just enough so that way we can show them the light and they can grab a hold of it and move forward. And that's how you see in this change process, everything's moving up past that letting go stage, because they search for something that helps them cope with the issue. Hopefully that's through how you've helped facilitate conversations and dynamics. And then they dive into it a little bit deeper to understand something a little bit better. And with, the best help, they can integrate those changes into their teaching practice as they move forward. And this is really the space where we can cultivate some of those mentees, maybe to eventually be mentors, but that whole internalization of change and accepting the process of change is a space that we want to get them to. So that's basic overview. We all know it. If you've heard of Kubler-Ross's stages of grief, same thing, okay? Just extending it out a little bit and trying to understand it in the context of a traumatic change for teachers. So the next thing that I want to touch base about is another one that we're all pretty well familiar with, and that's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We've seen this, we've used it. If you've been through teacher preparation, you've basically had it beat into your brains. And what I want to give us an opportunity to do is step back out of it for a second and gain a little bit of new perspective. Y'all can read the levels. You know how it functions, in that we've got to fill those fundamental base needs before we can get them up to self-actualization. But as the crew here will tell you, I'm a data geek, but also a qualitative research geek. That model came from this book, Motivation and Personality by Abraham Maslow. It's a pretty thick read, and of course I had to read it during my doctoral program, but it helped me understand a couple of things. Misconceptions that I had coming into this. One is that people are going to be at different levels simultaneously. So one does not have to fulfill psychological needs like, food and mental, emotional states. They don't have to fulfill those 100% before they move up to the next level. As Maslow says, it's usually between 30 and 50% where that movement starts happening. And you know this because even amidst the craziness of March 13th, 2020, and everything that ensued after that, we still had a job to do, right? Even though we wanted to gripe and complain about it, we had to keep going. And a lot of it was because we were motivated by providing a quality experience for our students. So you can move up to try and actualize some things and make sure that, all right, do I have the basic fundamental safety needs met? Yes. I don't need any PPE because I'm teaching all digital. So now let's move up into the next step, love and belonging, where we try to engage folks, which is crucial in a digital learning environment because we can't physically connect with them. We can't leverage that zone of proximal development, right? And trying to use proximity with some of our students or even mentors to gauge how they're doing. So we can still move a little bit further and help people realize, hey, you're really good at technology. You're really good at Flipgrid, something along those lines. let's use that as a little piece to catch on to and maybe push them up into self-actualization. Even though everything below it might not be met at 100%, they can still move up that hierarchy of needs. So Chris was in a good space, but what's here, you can see, you know about this. I'm not going to hammer that too hard, but I'm really more curious now, knowing that, how we've utilized Maslow in our mentoring programs or as an administrator with some of our professional development. So if Chris, go ahead and click to the next one. What I want to capture is something that you are doing in your context. So how are you fulfilling one of these needs? If you want to give us a couple more, that's great. But consider those levels of psychological safety, love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. The example up there says safety, I've ensured all my teachers have cleaning wipes in the classroom, basic one, right? Take a moment just to consider those 5 areas that are there and type in a response. So I want to take a moment to step aside for maybe like 5 minutes, put you in a room of 2 or 3 people, and give you a chance just to talk about these and what Maslow's hierarchy looks like in your planning for mentoring. Well, welcome back, everybody. I hope y'all were able to have some good conversations about Maslow in your breakout rooms. I'm kind of curious what happened. So anybody willing to share? Give us an idea. What kinds of things did y'all talk about in terms of fulfilling teachers' needs?
Come on, Matt.
I can go if we've got a minute here. So
Yeah. Rock and roll.
So we looked, we talked a little bit. We got sidetracked on looking for a drink of water on our own, my own psychological need there on Maslow's hierarchy. But we really focused on safety and working with that with our mentees, and ensuring that they've kind of got the tools that ours need in our specific district to develop an AME pathway for next year. They're art teachers, but to go from that to a CTE teacher is quite a transition. So I'm focusing on trying to help them with those safety needs as we move through that process.
Very cool.
I can go next. We were talking about you know, like in my situation, I think we were talking to Ashley, that it's hard to just reassure the teachers, you know, it's okay to ask for help, you know, that we're always there for them, and getting some pushback maybe because they think that they know it and then find out they really don't. You know, it's kind of, you don't want to insult them, but yet you want to let them know that you're there for them.
For sure, that's a good one.
That's a good point.
We talked a little bit about teachers feeling like they're alone, and a lot of that is COVID and with, you know, trying to get home after being on campus in time for Zoom and fighting with those students leaving at the same time. That adds to the fact that there's just no communication between your neighbors anymore. And so that makes it hard when you have these new teachers not having any communication. So
yeah,
that's a big one.
Hugely important. Yeah,
and
for sure.
Mentioned that in terms of like the belonging kind of space. It's hard to feel connected when it's just digital ties.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very cool.
All right.
Right.
Well, we'll come back to some of these themes throughout, you know, at the rest of our time and even into next week, and it's not going to go away. We're going to be figuring out new educational contexts. So
for sure,
we have any other best practices, our goal is to help share them and bring everybody together so we can touch base about what's working and what's not. So thanks for considering that, and we're going to move forward just a little bit into some other resources. for them?
Yeah, so one of the things, you know, we just talked about how we are working our best to really fulfill our teachers' needs. And a couple of ways we can go about that is two forms that I actually use with my own teachers that I'm training this year. And the very first form that I gave them at the beginning of the year when they come on, even if they come on like in the middle of the year, I still give them this form. And this is a getting to know you form. And what it is it starts out with just some general questions, you know, what is your name, your phone number, all that kind of stuff, subjects that they are teaching. But then it starts asking them more personalized information, like what is their preferred method of communication? I found really quickly that not everybody likes to text. Some people, believe it or not, still like to just get a phone call. They feel like they get, Amanda's raising, that's me, I hate texting. We found that some people just love to get a phone call and it's more personable. They feel like they get better information. It's more clarifying for them as just getting a text or an email. And so I ask my teachers that, like, what is their preferred way to communicate with me? Now, if I'm sending out a mass communication, obviously email is the better way for me to do it. But if I need to convey something to a specific teacher, it's good for me to know what's best for them, whether text or email or phone call. And all of my teachers do all three of these as well. The second one is asking them just what is their favorite school appropriate beverage. It could be tea, their favorite Starbucks drink, their favorite soda, whatnot. And the reason why I ask that is not only so I can have these beverages available to them when they come to our trainings, but when I go out and visit them, I make sure that I usually have their favorite beverage with me. And so I have a teacher whose favorite drink is Coke. He likes Coca-Cola. And there happens to be a gas station just down the street from his school. I will pop into that gas station, walk in, spend $2 on a Coca-Cola, and I'll drive up to his school, hand him that nice cold refreshing Coca-Cola, even though I've got Pepsi here right now. And then it makes a total difference in his day, just knowing that I remembered and that I cared to bring him that in the middle of his day. And so that is just another great thing. And then same thing with the snack, just really getting to know like what they like to eat, you know, if they like trail mix or cookies or whatever it may be. And then I ask them just what are some of their favorite ways to unwind and relax. I have a teacher who I did not know she was crazy into total Dungeons and Dragons on the weekends. Like she plays in, and Ash is looking at me. I can tell you it doesn't admit it. So she totally like plays games on the weekends and plays, you know, with her friends. And in getting to know that, I thought that, oh, that's cool. I didn't know that about her. And so her mentor teacher actually bought her a pack of socks that were like Dungeons and Dragons themed socks. And I think he bought them at GameStop, gave them to her, totally made her day. And she felt so appreciated. And then the other things I list here is just what are their professional goals and what do they want to learn as a new teacher? On professional goals, a lot of them will say, I just want to get my credential cleared. So that is a goal for them. Or they might have a training they want to get Google certified in the next year or two. That's great for me to know because as I know what their goals are, I can really help them with accomplishing those. And then lastly, what do they want to learn as a new teacher? And this is valuable information because it helps me as their mentor really start to shape what our trainings are going to look like, because then I can ask them, you know, some of them might say, I want to get better at classroom management or at lesson plan development, or just even getting through my lessons and pacing. It's good for me to know those things as their brand new teachers. So you have access to this form. If you click here, it'll open that up so you guys can see what it looks like. And so that's what I give all my teachers at the beginning when they first start with me. The second form is a form that I give my teachers every single month. And this is just a real quick credential check-in form, and I'll actually fill it out as we're talking about it so you can see what it does. So the first question I ask them is, how are you feeling this month about teaching? Some of them usually will mark they feel pretty happy, they feel pretty confident. Every so often I'll get they feel worried or angry. No pomegranates. If you don't know what that is, just Google or go on YouTube and type in no pomegranates. You'll see what that means. But they'll put on here how they feel. And then that helps me really, as I go back and review these, I know where they're at. And then Every month I've asked them, what type of training do you want to do the next time we meet? Is it online, hybrid, or in person? Most of them have said online this year because of the way the pandemic has been. But I'm proud to say we're starting to do in-person instruction or in-person trainings again. Our first in-person training was last month, and then we're doing our next in-person training coming up next week, next week. And then that's exciting. So mark that one there. And then the last question I asked them is, what is their credential? Or do they have a clear credential or a preliminary credential? If they put a cleared credential, then they just click submit and they're done. If they put a preliminary, I ask them, when does it expire? A lot of times they don't know. So I've put a link here that takes them right to where they can look up their credential right away, and then they can type it in and see when it expires. That is kind of not so much for me as it is for them, so that they know in the back of their heads, oh, I need to get my credential cleared before I move on. Let's say, for the sake of argument, my credential happened to it's clearing at the end of this month. Then it goes on to the next question. Now, for me, these are most of the credentialing agencies that my teachers go to when they're trying to get that clear credential. A lot of them are at San Diego. We have a few that are at LACO, but for this one, I'll just put Cal State San Bernardino and then click next. So when they choose that, it goes towards asking them what classes have they enrolled in or have completed. So we'll say I enrolled here, here, and here. And let's say I'm enrolled to take contemporary issues, in the summer. And then I'll hit submit. And so now and then I can put in a response. So now as the mentor, I will get the answers to that form, and it helps me know, how do my teachers feel? Because they may not tell me in person how they feel. They might more tell me privately on that form, but I also get to know where they're at in their credential, and just really get a chance to see where they're at. So it's a cool form. Again, you have access to both of those by just clicking on those links. And it's just a great way to really communicate. And as we've discussed, really fitting the needs of figuring out where your teachers are at so you can help them going forward.
All right. So this is the cool piece for me. Kathy knows this. I see her smiling. I'm just a little bit of a data geek. So I like pulling things together and getting a big picture and drilling in where we need to. So as we look at things, we report some of the things that y'all do to the State Department of Education when we finish the contract term for the year. And so if we click into the next slide, it's some of the first data that we've got together for trimester 2. And this will get compiled with trimester 1 here in a moment, but you can get an idea for where y'all are spending some time. So administrators and even your mentors, we can see that there's a pretty high prevalence of time spent on communication, just talking to folks, either an email back and forth, could be even considered a Google Meet or a Zoom room. And then we move down next to preparation time, which is really close to like that administrative work that you all as mentors do. So those tasks that help you build up structures and kind of build up how you're going to facilitate the growth in some of the mentees that you're working with over this year. And for those administrators on the call, one thing that y'all should be pretty proud of is all of that work that's going in. We'll look at some shout outs here in a second, but even taking it further, looking at how our mentors are facilitating workshops and what they're doing is really neat. And between Chris and myself and Kathy, David, and even Melissa, looking through these activity logs, we get a really solid idea of the fact that you're thinking out of the box. You're taking some of the resources that we give you in CTE Teach, and you're taking some of those resources that you're familiar with in your local context and applying those to your mentoring experience. So we've got a total just in trimester 2 of 1,858 hours for everybody across the program. And that's pretty significant. I think our trimester 1 total was somewhere around 915 total hours. And so we're considering more work from more mentors as we integrate those from round 1 of the grant and round 2 together in trimester 2. So if we look at the next slide and some of the totals, we're close to 3,000 hours of work that you all are accounting for. That is massive. again, that communication piece goes up, prep time goes up, and we see that we're still spending as much time on teacher visits and observations and facilitating some workshops in some fashion. So it's really interesting. Between the two regions that we have in the state, pretty similar, our metrics. And so this is just a quick shout out for anybody that's out there. You know that majority of y'all have 150 hours that you can use. We want to get you as close to that as possible. And so anything that you're doing relative to mentoring your new CTE teachers, we want to account for that, and something to consider as we get into trimester 3 and however we want to report to us and the team at CRY-ROP for invoicing. And I know Melissa's here. She'll talk about some of that here in a moment, but the hours are huge. We've got a lot that's going on and we see all of that. So good job. Give yourself a little pat on the back because y'all deserve it, either as a mentor or an administrator facilitating these folks. So if we click on the next slide, these are some of the shout outs we did at one of our last webinars. There are a few folks. I'm going to give Tanya a quick big shout out because she's a repeat offender, if you will, in doing amazing things. And so she was talking here about how she communicated with one of her mentees about some specifics in his class and what things look like, how he can keep motivating students and doing things moving forward. So thank you for those descriptions. This is just a testament to the fact that when we read through these are the little moments that kind of tickle us, if you will. And the next shout out is Veronique Marks from Pajaro Valley, looking at connecting with all of their different mentees in a Google Meet, but looking at the district catalog and potential changes. Here's context, right, that matters in this individual's district specifically, and having a deep dive about one size fits all curriculum and pacing programs. So what those do and how things impact students within their school district. And the last one that we really liked was one from Janet at Fresno, looking at research into things that the mentees are looking for relative to curriculum development and developing assignments. And for anybody working at home, students working at home or on site. So we like seeing those things, and that's just a testament to the awesome resources that y'all are kind of digging up. And this is only a fraction. So thank you for submitting those things. We've got some great stuff to move forward with, and we're looking forward to what we get out of trimester 30. But I believe next we're going to hand it off to Miss Melissa Dix, and she's gonna touch base with y'all about some program invoicing and what some logistics are going to look like moving forward.
Thanks, Grant. Good morning, everyone. Chris, do you have that document for me to share?
I do.
Awesome. All right, so nice to see you guys. Hope you're ready to wind down the year as much as we all are in this crazy year we've had. So as you're wrapping things up, we just want to check in and make sure that we have everything that we should have from you so far, which means we have both trimester 1 and 2 logs from all your mentors, and that you're finishing up the log for trimester 3. While you see in the MOU that you signed and through our reminders that you do have technically until July 15th, which is the drop dead date to submit anything for invoicing. If your business department is like ours over here, we do suggest that you submit things early. And early really means by June 1st. That'll make everybody's fiscal agents much happier. We know a lot of our schools are about to end either just before or just after Memorial Day. So we think it's pretty good timing to ask for this. And if for nothing else, it's to make business people happy as they're closing out the school books for this year. So we are asking that you do make every attempt to get us those invoices and those final logs by the end of this month, June 1st, that first week of June, so that we can then push it over on our side for invoicing, and so we can meet all of our state deadlines as well. Anything we don't receive by the drop dead of July 15th will not be paid. So that's just a big disclaimer. We cannot pay anything received after July 15th. So please, again, we just encourage you to get everything turned in as early as possible. One thing we're going to do to make it a little easier for your business departments and for ours is once we have your final logs, we are going to compile a single document that Chris is going to flash at you. That we will do all the math. We will compile all your hours for each mentor at your site for trimester 1, 2, and 3. And we will do a total at the bottom. So that'll be a great, easy way for you to invoice us and for us to submit for your final payment from our business office here. So once we do have all of your logs, we'll do all the magic math and we will send this off as an Adobe Sign document to your site's administrator on our records. So please, if there's been a change in administrator, or they change emails or availability or anything like that, that you do let the team know so that we can make sure we get this in the hands of the right person. It'll just be a matter of them confirming the hours, sending this back to us signed with that completed invoice for the hours and money that all matches what we have for you. So we will get those out to you as soon as we have all of the logs in hand to just streamline the final payment process. So.
Well, thank you, Melissa, for popping in and sharing that and clarifying some of that for us. So our final webinar, believe it or not, is going to be next week. We have sent out a survey to you that was in Canvas, and in that we asked, some feedback from the program, which we will go over next week as well. And then if you click on this link, and fingers crossed this one works, it is a feedback form for today's webinar. So again, this is an anonymous form that you can give us regarding this specific webinar as well. And then if you would like information about next year's program, we've created this link here. If you click on it, it'll take you to this site to where you can just find out more information about the program, and then if you click here, you can get on our interest list to be in next year's program, and then we will send that out. When we send out applications, we will send your name. So again, just some good info to share. For people who are not in the program or might be interested in it, this is a good way for them to at least start reading about it. We do have the caveat that some things might change depending on what the application with the state looks like, not the application, the agreement with the state looks like, but definitely you can go there and see get on the interest list for next year's program. Then, as always, we have our CT Teach resources on YouTube is probably the dominant one that we have as far as what the trainings that we go. This webinar will be up there shortly after today. We will edit it and put it up there for you guys to review, and along with all of our podcasts and stuff that we have in our Twitter. So, Grant, it's all yours.
All right. So I love this quote. We like to finish on a couple. One of the previous ones was from Oprah, and this one comes to you today, courtesy of Steven Spielberg. He says, the delicate balance of mentoring someone is not creating them in your image, but giving them the opportunity to create themselves. And so I would urge us all to consider the initiatives we have going on in our school district, the initiatives that are going on in the state of California at the moment. Those are all valid and important, but we have to recall that we can't just so easily impose them on others, and we've got to help them develop themselves in that light. And our job as administrators and as mentors is to help them do that. So how we conduct ourselves and the resources that we use during the process are going to be key. So take a little learning lesson from Steven Spielberg. He made some pretty good pictures in his day.
One or two of them.
Yeah, just a couple. So take that. If y'all have any questions, we'll stick around for a moment, but I believe, Chris?
The final thing is, so now to access this slide presentation, if you go to bit.ly/CT webinar 3, you can get access to this entire presentation, all of the slides, and all of the links to everything, and then you can click on everything and that is it. I'm completely done. We'll stay on for a few more minutes should you guys have any questions for us. And that is it. Thank you for joining us. And we will see you next week at 3 o'clock for our statewide final webinar for the CTE Teach 2021 program. So, bye. Here's one. Beatles or Rolling Stone?
Rolling Stones.
No, Kathy.
Yeah, I don't like the Beatles. I mean, they're not like John Lennon.
What?
The one person in the whole wide world. I know.
He's gonna set your desk on fire. You be careful.
Well, bye.
My heart. You can't see it, but my heart literally just cracked in half and shriveled out like it got fat, snapped by Thanos.